For about 10 years, Kristen and I lived in Cleveland, Ohio. We landed there at the invitation of Ron Weinberg, a mentor of mine who owned a bunch of industrial manufacturing companies in Cleveland and around the country. And Ron brought me in to be a product manager at one of these companies, but also invited me to be part of the mergers and acquisitions team. And so over a decade, I worked for Ron on and off in a variety of his industries, and he mentored me. Let me sit in on meetings, asking what I thought, sharing his wisdom. And I learned how to look at a company. And I learned how to read numbers. And I learned how to estimate and establish value. And a lot of the lessons I learned from Ron in my days in M&A, I use in my leadership here at Epiphany. Now, every quarter or so, Ron would take me out to lunch at his club, and we'd sit down together, just he and I, and we'd talk business, and we'd talk strategy, and we'd talk life. And the day came one day when I was sitting there with him, and I let him know I was going to seminary. And he was pretty stunned. Now, he knew I went to church, and even though he was Jewish, he would always invite Kristen and I to his house for Christmas because we were stuck there through residency. But this move caught him a little off guard. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you need more money?" And I said, "Yes, Ron, I need more money. But I'm not going to seminary for that." And he said, "Well, don't sign anything just yet." That was his request. He said, "Let's meet next week for lunch." Classic Ron. Thoughtful, deliberate, always doing his due diligence. And so we met again in a week, same time, same table. Always the same table. And he leaned across the table, he looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Do you really want to do this?" And I said, "Yes." Well, he replied, "I did some research. That Episcopal church of yours seems to have just bought the Lutherans." Referring to the concordant that just happened. And Ron, always the M&A guy looking for opportunity, said, "I think this may be good for you. Looks like the market's ready for a roll-up." And then he paused and he said something that'll stick with me, meant a lot to me. He said, "You know, Dwight, if you ever need a job, I'd love to have you back." I hold on to that a lot still. And that story, Ron, came to mind because of Kelly's sermon, fabulous sermon 2 weeks ago, talking about her life as an editor and how we all bring our vocational life into our spiritual journey. So today, I'd like to bring you into my old world of M&A and together do a little due diligence on Epiphany, like Ron taught me. And the question we're going to ask this morning is Epiphany worth acquiring? Like, what's its value? What's its ROI? What can we get for this place? No, we're not going to sell Epiphany, right? But there is value here, and you know it, and I know it. Today is the beginning of our annual appeal. And this is a season when we talk about money, not because money's the point, but money does make this place run. And each year we ask all of us to make a pledge so we can plan on how we're going to run this place over the next year. It is important to know that 85% of our annual operating revenue comes each year from pledges. So let's do a little due diligence on this place. So we begin with the first thing that we encounter when we come to Epiphany, which is the buildings and the grounds, right? We walk into this nave, we come and we sit in the pews, and we witness a majestic, perfectly designed place for purpose, for worship, for stillness, for transcendence, for music to unleash awe. The acoustics here aren't just good, They transport sound. If you've ever sat up in the balcony during Evensong, you know what I'm talking about. The choir sings it down here, and yet the sound seems to come, at least as I shut my eyes, seems to come from outside the walls of this place into this space, blowing the breath of creation into our worship life. It is immersive. It is powerful and peaceful simultaneously. And that sensation, that is no accident. It's by design. That's intentional, right? This space was designed to serve that spiritual purpose. See, buildings matter. They are what locate Epiphany. They locate us, this place we come, to this spiritual center of gravity. Another thing I would mention to Ron, if we're talking about the value of Epiphany, is its size. It's not too big, too cavernous, in a way that makes maintenance a resource liability. It's not too small either. It's a mama bear. Epiphany's a mama bear just right. We can gather 400 plus people over our 5 Sunday services and still and always have room for more. Epiphany has capacity. And that tells us something about scalability and sustainability and value over time. You with me? Right. And so if you come here and you happen to enter the grounds on a Thursday, you will run across a Jit, our sexton, who's out mowing the lawn, because he mows the lawn on Thursdays. And when you see Jit, inevitably he'll turn off his lawnmower and he'll look at you and he'll say hi. He'll greet you. Jit's our second longest tenured employee, behind me. When I used to do due diligence on companies, I would always look for the Jit, right, to go talk to him. Because hidden within the community of guys like Jit is the culture of the place. Their commitment, their connection, how they talk about it, how they talk about people, right? Their attitude speaks volume to the value of a company. Go talk to Jit sometime. Or talk to Amanda. Because when I went to companies, I always looked for the Amanda as well, to see how the institution valued people over time, how they let them grow and change and morph and make space for them to call up their best gifts. You know, Amanda's been employed here since 2010. 16 years old, down in the nursery, Sunday mornings. And as her skill grew and her curiosity expanded, her roles expanded as well until today. You know her as a significant leader here. That's how I know her, as our parish life minister. You might be surprised to find out that the average staff tenure at Epiphany is 8.8 years. It's a rare thing in church world. It's even rarer that a church like Epiphany could attract somebody like Kate Wesh. Seriously, this is a person of great stature in the broader church, and she's come back to assume new and dynamic leadership in a much needed way. Thank you for being here. Because that says something about the value of this place. See, people stay at Epiphany or maybe come back to Epiphany because they're valued here, because they can grow here, because they know you love them and they love you. And one way you show this support, I'll just be straight with you, is by pledging. Now, due diligence also requires that we dig into the numbers. I used to love that. That was one of the favorite things for me in business. I always, once a month, I look at our balance sheet, I look at our P&L, I look at our reserves. We watch our cash flow. Gary knows this, treasurer for years here, right? We watch our cash flow. We look at pledges coming in, right? We assess our chart of accounts. And we invest a lot in things like cybersecurity. We employ auditors. We license our software. We pay insurance and postage and internet connections and laptops, bank fees, disabilities, website maintenance. All that stuff happens here. It's not glamorous, but it's completely necessary. and it's well done. There's a ton that goes on behind the scenes at Epiphany, and it's expensive, and it is necessary, and it is important, and it adds value to this parish. And then there's the core of what we do, the thing that everybody sees, right? Worship, formation, outreach, 5 services on a Sunday, 62 people in the choir. Is it 62? Zach, how many? Laura. Doesn't look that way this morning because of the concert, but 10 choristers. We do a lot of things. We do Evensong, we do RELATA, we do pilgrimages, we do small groups, we do women's groups, we do men's groups, we do youth things, we do family stuff. We got a lot going on here. Look in the back of your bulletin some Sunday. And we teach here, we teach a bunch here. We teach sophisticated classes, 400 series classes. We teach brand new Christian classes. We teach inquirers classes. We teach newcomers classes. We teach catechesis classes. We teach Bible study every week. This time it's on artificial intelligence, 12 weeks on AI. I am willing to say that we're the only church in Christendom that is teaching a 12-part series on AI in the Bible. Yes. Then there's the outreach. All right, outreach, we connect, right? We connect with our neighbors by doing a lot of stuff, Christmas parties, Easter egg hunts, Halloween stuff, Super Bowl parties. We're reaching out all the time and inviting people out there to come in here because we're here. And we can offer some things. We serve a lot of meals. We see at least once a week we're serving a meal someplace in the city of Seattle. It's a big deal. And we serve the world as well, in Haiti, in Guatemala, and certainly in the Holy Land. We connect pastorally with our friends who can't make it here on Sunday, our friends at Park Shore, friends at Horizon House, our friends at Skyline, our friends at Marabella. That's all the stuff that I tell Ron about. That's the product, right? And that product reflects the vision. It reflects the mission, the energy, how Epiphany's working, right? Growing, connecting. People are being formed as Jesus people, powered by the Holy Spirit. Which brings me to the Bible, to the gospel today, to Luke, to 10 lepers who cry out to Jesus, "Have mercy on me." What's Jesus say to them? He says, go to the priest, ask to be let back into the community. And on their way, they are healed. They're not healed when they're talking to Jesus. They're not healed when they get to the priest. They are healed on the journey. Right? Transformation happens on the journey. And one of them recognizes this, and he turns back. And he goes back to Jesus, and he says, "Thank you." That's what the annual appeal is about, incidentally. It's about looking at our lives. It's about looking at our journey and asking, where's the healing happened? Or where's the transformation occurred? Where has the clarity emerged? Where has my soul been filled with love? Epiphany. That's why we pledge, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. We pledge to honor the value, the worth of this place and to pass it on. If I were doing due diligence on Epiphany for Ron, I would report back the buildings and grounds are well maintained, beautiful, and designed for purpose and used for that purpose. Staff's mature, industrious, they work well together, they're deeply committed. The underlying administration's solid. The product is unparalleled, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. But most importantly, I'd tell Ron about you. People in the pews, people in the classes, people reaching out into the community, the people in the choir. Dynamic, spiritually deep, mature. I'd probably tell him a story that Ben Bradstreet told me about his father, Bob Bradstreet, right? Bob Bradstreet, who was here visiting Epiphany a couple weeks ago. You see, Bob was a congregational pastor who had served in churches all over the place for over 50 years. Retired now. Came with Laura and Ben down to our 400 series theology discussion on Christology, which was fun. Divine and human nature of Jesus. Room was full, conversation was lively, and Bob observed to Ben that he had never witnessed in all of his years of ministry such a theologically sophisticated, well-formed group of people. Epiphany is about the spiritual journey, meeting people where they are. It's a place of spiritual respite. It's a way station. It's a destination. It is a final resting place out in the columbarium. It's a destination that some come to once a week. Some come to more than once a week. Some come and join us online. Some come when they can. To touch this spiritual hotspot that is so intentionally cared for, and we're able to do it because of your pledge. And so let me ask you, what would the Pacific Northwest be like without Epiphany? What would the city of Seattle be like without Epiphany? What would your life be like without Epiphany? What is the value of Epiphany to you? So next Sunday, Barb Marshall's going to share her reflections on that question for you. She'll be coming up here from the pews where the pulse of this place lives, the pews where you all sit, you who give this place value, who are core to what makes Epiphany a spiritual center of gravity. It is what makes this place such an extraordinary blessing. And I'm so glad to be your rector. Thank you for being here at Epiphany.